Bull riding movies are not the first type of movies that I think of when someone says sports movies. They're never able to break the mold of cowboys hopping onto an animal that is 1.5 thousand pounds that is trying to buck them off while they try to hold on. With that being said, there are a slew of movies that are about bull riding. Well, maybe not all about bull riding, but at least have bull riding as the main concept. Most bull riding movies are love stories, with bull riding being the side conflict. Kinda like how boxing was the side conflict in Rocky, and the movie being more about Adrian and Rocky's love story. A little unknown fact that you might not know about me is that before I wanted to be an influencer, and long before I wanted to be an orthopedic therapist, I wanted to be a bull rider. That's right before I ever had any interest in doing anything with film. I wanted to ride 1,000-pound animals while they tried to buck me off, and I tried holding on for 8 seconds. Then the day came when my brain developed and I realized that maybe bull riding isn't what I should pursue as a career. But in this time, where I was obsessed with everything bull riding, I watched a lot of bull riding movies. A lot of the notable ones that I remember were Cowboy Up with Kiefer Sutherland and 8 Seconds starring Luke Perry. But the one I watched the most was 8 Seconds. I have many fond memories of this movie and the influence it had on me when I was growing up. A lot of times I would watch this movie, go outside and pretend I was riding bulls. I would literally go to the nearest fence and climb up over it like I was entering a bucking chute. I thought I was destined to become a bull rider. Literally. I thought it was my duty to God. And the film 8 Seconds is what really made me believe that. But was it just because the movie had a lot of bull riding? Or was it something more? I recently watched this movie again and I gotta say, it ain't bad. Actually, it's really good. I mean, it's not a Shawshank Redemption masterpiece or anything, but it is a pretty well done sports film. The determination and the drive that we see Lane Frost go on to accomplish is pretty magnificent. For those that don't know who the f*** Lane Frost is, he was a young prominent bull rider on the come up. He competed in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Now this was before PBR was a thing, so he never won a PBR world title, but he did win the 1987 PRCA World Championship for bull riding. And besides winning a chip in bull riding, he also conquered probably the best bull of that time period. Red Rock was a bull that had not been ridden in over 309 attempts. And it wasn't because this bull was mean or temperamental, but because he was smart. According to GearPatrol.com, Red Rock could sense a rider's moves and then pull a swift and effective counterattack. In the bull's entire career, he was never ridden, until the one-off Challenge of Champions where Lane Frost would attempt to conquer him in 7 rides. Lane didn't just ride him once, but 4 times out of 7. But unfortunately, on July 30th, 1989, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, during the town's annual Frontier Days, he sustained severe injuries after the bull known as Taking Care of Business struck him after the ride, and he was pronounced dead at a local hospital. Lane Frost was a cowboy whose life was cut short at just 25 years old. It's a shame, really, but Lane's story of romantic determination was so good that in 1993, they decided to adapt an entire biopic about Lane's up and come up, detailing the tragic story of the legendary bull riding king, Lane Frost. When we start the movie, it opens on the Oklahoma prairie, with a stampede of bulls running towards the camera. When we get a little Lane Frost and his father Clyde Frost, and as they watch the herd of bulls being moved, Lane asks his father why he doesn't ride the bulls, and he responds by saying that he's scared of them, and Lane says that he ain't scared of him. We then jump forward a little bit into the future, and little Frost is participating in some good old-fashioned mutt bussin'. Lane is lifted in the air by his father, where Lane does his signature celebration by holding both his arms in the air while the crowd cheers him on. I don't know how many times I do this celebration, and I wouldn't even just do it when I was playing outside. No, I would do this every time I felt like I did something good. I'd do it in the McDonald's line after ordering something because I had so much social anxiety when I was little that I thought I accomplished something. I tell you what, I was obsessed. I wanted to be just like Lane Frost. Jump ahead again into the future and we see the juvenile Lane Frost. And whoever is playing this part is doing a great job because I went to school with rodeo kids and this is exactly how they talk, walk, and squawk. He then enters the bucking chute riding a steer. Good old-fashioned steer ride. While tightening the rope and whatnot, Clyde tells him that if he's gonna ride, he might as well be the best. I always thought of this introduction as just that. an introduction. But upon rewatching, I've come to the realization that this introduction isn't just your standard run-of-the-mill introduction. This not only establishes Lane as an up-and-coming bull rider, but it also presents to us his evolution of developing himself into the champion bull rider that he would later become. We then are brought to the present day of this story. Oklahoma, 1983. Lane is in a rush to get to a rodeo. We then are introduced to Tuff Hedeman and Cody Lambert, who wait for Lane. Tuff and Cody are also bull riders, and Tuff and Lane have a bit of history with each other as they both competed in the high school finals, where Lane ultimately beat him. Cody thought it would be a good idea to have Lane join them on their trips to rodeos, because 1, Lane can help with expenses, and 2, he's good. As the film progresses, Cody, Tuff, and Lane become best friends, but more like brothers. They all end up sharing a bond that not a lot of people can say they have. But to start, Cody and Tuff are just people Lane rides with. Lane quickly grabs a piece of toast and an egg and some bacon. But before he leaves, his dad warns him against making a career out of rodeo, because in order for Lane to do that, he needs to be really good. Lane says that that's the plan, and hops in the cruiser with Tuff and Cody. Tuff gives Lane a ton of shit about being late, and his shirt, and his hat. Lane asks if that was a joke because his family doesn't joke a lot. And Tuff says that he and Cody are his family now, and they make their way to the rodeo. When they get there, Lane watches a barrel racer make a good ride. This is the first and only barrel race in the entire movie, and that's a good thing. This barrel racer's name is Kelly Kyle, and she is the future wife of Mr. Lane Frost. When we first meet Kelly, she seems a bit uninterested in Lane at first, but the more they meet at these rodeos, the more she begins to open up to Lane. Kelly reminds me of Adrian from Rocky 1. She feels like she needs Lane the same way that Adrian needs Rocky, or vice versa. And Lane needs her too. They fill each other's gaps.
What's gaps?
Oh, gaps. She's got gaps, I got gaps, together we fill gaps. I don't know.
But before Lane can shoot his shot with Kelly, he needs to ride this bull. And we get our first bull ride of the movie. Every bull ride you see in this movie is practical. No special effects here. If you are really analytical, you can obviously tell that that isn't Luke Perry riding that bull. And I don't even think Jackie Chan would agree to do this stunt. But I love that they use real bull rides for every bull riding segment. It adds a unique touch and gives this movie a personality that I don't think could have been accomplished with CGI bull riding. Lane has a good ride, getting him second place. Of course, after the bull ride, he attempts to ask out Kelly Kyle, to which she rejects him. He meets her mom, and then he goes with Tuff and Cody to go to a night at the bar. Tuff gets into a fight at the bar, and they end up leaving. A drunk Tuff Hedeman confronts and verbally assaults Lane, in a Tuff Hedeman type of way. He tells Lane that he doesn't have what it takes to be a big-time bull rider. Although it doesn't bother Lane, as he shows Tuff that it doesn't affect him much. Lane shrugs it off and Tuff passes out on the motel bedroom. This scene right here shows us that Tuff is either really jealous and envious of Lane, or that he's just being completely honest with him. I think the latter is said to be true. Pretty soon, as the three all complete and ride in more rodeos, Lane and Kelly start to see each other more. The two fall in love, get married, and start to rodeo together, instead of carpooling with Tuff and Cody. As Lane gets more and more successful in bull riding, he starts to skyrocket in popularity. Pretty soon, he takes home the buckle for World Champion Rodeo Bull Rider. After receiving the buckle, he immediately goes to show his dad. His dad says the buckles have gotten bigger than what they used to be. Clyde Frost was a world champion bronc rider back before Lane's time, and even won many awards for his time in bronc riding. Throughout the entire movie so far, Clyde always tells Lane that he's proud of him, and he never forgets to praise him. But for Lane, that's never what he wanted from his father. Clyde tells him that he's done a good job and now the next challenge for him is to stay on top, which is not what Lane wanted to hear from his father. It sends him into a fit of rage, as cool as a fan Lane Frost, who doesn't drink, now has turned into an overly emotional, pissed off alcoholic Lane Frost. In the hotel room after the party, Lane tells Kelly that he doesn't want her talking to her ex-boyfriend anymore. Probably the respectful thing to do for Lane, but right now it's shown as Lane being insecure. Because he is. Later that night, after Lane has cooled off, he apologizes to Kelly for being so upset earlier. Later, after a rodeo, Lane sits in his hotel room trying to call Kelly. Then a few moments later, he hears a knock at the door and it's a red-headed Buckle Bunny. She invites herself in, and as you can imagine, Lane gives in after being unable to call Kelly. So Lane cheats on his wife after he told her to stop talking to her ex-boyfriend. Lane feels extremely guilty about it, and after he gets back, he goes to Kelly and almost tells her. But the guilt is so heavy, he holds it in. Lane, still frustrated and mad at himself, starts to do things without consulting with Kelly. One of the things he does is the Lane Frost versus Red Rock event, the Battle of Champions or whatever it was. I don't know if this is actually true, but it does make it interesting. Because of Lane's guilt for cheating on Kelly, it starts to create problems between them. So much so that Kelly cheats on Lane with her ex-boyfriend. This obviously makes Kelly extremely guilty. But Kelly doesn't keep it a secret from Lane, and she tells him. Lane forces her out of their home, and Kelly, I assume, goes back to her parents' home in Quanah, Texas. All while this conflict is going on, Lane is trying to ride Red Rock, and the whole time he's been unsuccessful. In real life, Lane Frost rides Red Rock 4 times out of 7. And it was more like a 7-game series. But in 8 seconds, Lane has 3 attempts to ride Red Rock. On his second attempt, he gets hurt and has to recover for a bit. In this time to recover, he spends some time with his parents. Clyde almost tells Lane that he loves him, but hesitates at the last second. And when he's with his mom, she asks him about his marriage with Kelly. This leads to an argument about rodeo and becoming good enough so his father would tell him that he loves him. Lane realizes that he needs Kelly like she needs him. So he goes to her and tells her that he's also been with other girls and that he failed as a husband and a lifelong partner. But most importantly, he failed Kelly. And when Kelly needed him the most, he turned his back on her. Kelly admits that they've both made mistakes and that they just want to spend the rest of their lives together. They make up, and in the next shot, Lane is on his 3rd and final attempt at riding Red Rock. As he prepares for his ride, he looks up in the stands and sees Kelly. And this time, Lane is able to ride the infamous Red Rock, now that he has the confidence to do so. He looks up to Kelly in a "Yo Adrian, I did it" type of way, and he embraces his best friends and brothers, Tuff Hedeman and Cody Lambert, as he finally bested Red Rock. The next cut brings us to Oklahoma in the year 1989, where Lane surprises Kelly with land to build a home. Lane hasn't ridden a bull in a while, but everyone is expecting him to ride in Cheyenne at the Frontier Days rodeo. So Lane decides to ride. Next, we see Lane, Tuff, and Cody flying in a plane, and Lane asks Cody to read one of his poems. Cody picks one out. There's 100 years of history and 104 of that all gathered into thinking going on beneath his hat. The cold flame burns within him till his skin's cold as ice, and the dues he paid to get there are worth every sacrifice. All the miles spent sleepy driving, all the money down the drain, all the if-I's and nearlies, all the bandages and pain, all the female tears left dry, and all the fever and the fight are just a small down payment on the ride he makes tonight. It's guts and love and glory, one mortal's chance at fame. His legacy is rodeo, and cowboy is his name. This poem that Cody reads perfectly encapsulates the life of Lane Frost. The cowboy who fought and worked hard to become the best at what he loved doing. The cowboy who had this romantic determination to hold on for 8 seconds. When we arrive in Cheyenne, we are brought to Tuff signing autographs for kids while Lane watches on. And if you remember previously, that it was Tuff that was making fun of Lane for signing autographs for kids, and now Tuff has fully embraced that very thing that drove him crazy to begin with. The next cut brings us back with Lane. As he tightens up his glove, he hears a familiar voice call out his name, and it's none other than Kelly. She waves to him and acknowledges him almost like she has his back no matter what happens next. With that look of approval, Lane settles into the bull, known as taking care of business. He gets himself tied up and prepares himself for his next ride. The whole time that this segment is happening, the music is upbeat and jovial. One might say that the music is hopeful and inspires freedom. Lane soon says he's ready, and the gate swings open, and Lane does his best to hold on for dear life. It's a good ride, and it scores him 92 points. After he dismounts the bull, the music turns from happy and jovial to intense and terrifying, leading up to the climax of the bull mauling Lane. Lane's ribs break and they puncture his heart, having him fatally wounded. He gets up and calls over Tuff and Cody, and Lane falls to the ground again. In real life, he falls to the ground and is taken to a hospital where he dies from his wound. But in this film, I've always just seen it as he falls back to the ground and that's where he dies. That's what I feel the director intended. The music in this section is absolutely amazing. The way Bill Conti goes from hopeful, then to epic, to tragic, then to the final heartbreaking strumming of an acoustic guitar without missing a beat was brilliant. It was a great way to tell a story through music. Then we get the heartbreaking scene of Lane's funeral, which then leads us back to Lane's father. Clyde says that he can't remember a single time that he told Lane that he loved him. He told him he was proud of him. He always remembered to praise him. but never told him that he loved him. And we watch as Clyde comes to the realization that he will never be able to say that to him. And that is the real tragedy of 8 seconds. Flash forward 6 months later, and Tough Hedeman climbs his way to the top and competes for the world championship for bull riding. He goes to Kelly to tell her about the award that they're giving to Lane at the finals. He tells her that they want her to accept it. She declines and tells Tough to accept it. Tough tells her how Lane told him in the spring that this was his year and that he'd win the championship. Tough recalls telling him that he was full of it. Tough now says that it's only a week away and he really believes that he has a chance. He tells Kelly that he never had anyone believe in him that much. Kelly tells Tough that Lane really loved him, and both Tough and Kelly share a moment together. Then we cut to the World Finals and the music is playing that epic Bill Conti sound. Tough straps in and gets ready to ride for the World Championship. The announcer tells us that Tough has dedicated his last ride to Lane Frost, and when the chute opens, the music turns from jovial to the epic trumpets from Bill that we're all so accustomed to. Tough rides for the full 8 seconds, and then some for his fallen brother. He takes off his hat and swings it in the air, almost like it's him tipping his hat to Lane. The crowd gives him a standing ovation as he continues to ride for Lane. Once he's off, Tough has officially won, not only for Lane, but himself. I've always believed this, but you could do a remake of this movie and have it be through Tough Hedeman's perspective. I'd pay top dollar to see that movie. As Tough looks to Lane's family, he does Lane's signature celebration and Kelly sees Lane. It's a great way to end off Lane's story, and at the end of this film, you're yearning for more. Lane was an iconic cowboy and bull rider in the rodeo scene, and for a lot of people, myself included, was an inspiration. He inspired me to overcome adversity and helped me value my family and relationships I made on this journey of life. Luke Perry gave us one of his best performances of his career, and although he himself was never a bull rider, he made sure to represent Lane in the best and most respectful way he could. I love this film, and growing up, it was one of those movies that really made me want to become a bull rider. And although I never went down that path, I will always hold on to the life lessons that 8 seconds brought to me. Alright people, that's all I have for today. I'm gonna go hit the gym, and without further ado, peace!